Nice to see you again. And we will have our first real lecture today. And as you can see on the screen, we will have 3 lectures on Korean culture. Okay? And you may be sort of saying, oh, wow, why spend 3 classes on culture? Well, you'll understand why after I go through the next 50 slides or so. Okay? So anyway, here we go. Okay. So this is the lecture outline, Introduction to Korea. So I'll start off with like an icebreaker. Okay? So I show you a number, and you tell me what that number means for Korea. Okay? So that's Introduction to Korea, Korea in numbers, followed by what is culture, 5 keywords to understand its characteristics, and keyword number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I left them out intentionally because I want to ask you later what those 5 keywords are. Okay? If you want to understand a new culture at its core, what should you be concerned with? What should you be looking at? What 5 cultural elements should be the starting points? Okay, that's the million-dollar question for you. Okay? And do you think this will be on the midterm exam or not? If you say yes, it'll be on the exam. Do you say yes or not? Yes? Okay. All right. So, like I promised, Korea, Introduction to Korea, Korea in numbers. Okay? I show you a number, again, I show you a number, and you tell me what that number means for Korea. And this number could be an actual number, could be a ranking, could be a percentage, and so on. Okay? So here we go. And this is the easiest number. 51,628,117. Oh, wow, guys, you guys are good. It's a population of Korea, and that is the 29th largest in the world, okay, as of 2022. A good start, okay? Now it's going to get a little bit trickier. 70. What does this number ring a bell? When I pose a difficult question, you get it right, I'll make you a very, very Korean Maxim coffee. Coffee mix, Korea just does it best. Okay? Just simply the best. Yes? Average age of what? Koreans? I mean, do you mean to say the life expectancy at birth? It's much, much higher than that. Okay? Well, you give me an idea as to maybe I should include that. The life expectancy at birth for Koreans is like 80. Okay? Yes? Amount of counties. Oh, very close. Yes? Or the number of years that has passed since the Republic of Korea was established. Very close, because it's 71 years. No. The Republic of Korea was established in 1948. So how many years do we have here? Is that 76? Something like that, right? So anyway, last call. 70? Yes. There are 10 provinces in Korea. Yes.
Yeah, like
70?
the population over 70 is like even more than the population over 20 years old.
Oh, very interesting try, but not the right answer. This is the really final call. No. Okay, sorry for the students at Beijing University. They couldn't hear what the students had to say, but they had said something like how it's been 70 years since the founding of the Republic, which did happen in 1948. And what else was mentioned? Anyway, I forget, okay? But anyway, the 70 here means this. About 70% of South Korea's land comprises of mountains. Okay? Now, do you know any other countries that has more mountainous landscape? Any country you know? Yes. Austria. What percentage of the land comprises of mountains? Anyway, here's actually a map that I want to show you. Okay, can you see the percentage next to the name of the country? So you can see how, like Nepal, it's like 80.7%. Bhutan, 98.8% of the country's land comprises of mountains. Okay, and a better known example would be Switzerland, okay, where 83.6% of the land comprises of mountains. But now I want to go back to this slide. Why? Did you know that hiking is the favorite pastime and favorite sports time of Koreans? Where like 1 in every 5 Koreans go hiking like at least like once every 2 months or so. Okay? Why is that? That's because most of the mountains in Korea, the elevation is less than 1,000 meters above the sea level. But like mountains in Switzerland, the elevation is like 3,000, 4,000, 2,000. So it's very difficult to do a day hiking. Whereas in Korea, you can do a whole hiking in 5-6 hours for most mountains. So that's why, and also in the country, at least in the capital region, there is a subway station nearby the entrance of any given mountain in Seoul. Okay? So for foreign exchange students, if you want to experience something Korean, I would say you should do 2 things. Okay, or 3 things. Drink soju, just kidding. Go hiking, okay? And just don't go by yourself or with foreign friends, but make sure you go with like a Korean friend or Korean friends, okay? Second, go visit a Buddhist temple, just to get a sense of what Koreans do when they are in this religious mode, okay? Actually, there's another thing. The third is, you should go to museums, okay? Because I don't know if any other country has a similar service, but all the national museums in Korea are free. Okay, not just on the last day of the month or last Sunday of the month. Every day is free. Okay, so you don't have to be a museum buff to appreciate that, right? So visit national museums, okay? Go hiking, go to Buddhist temple, and so on, okay? And if I get to remember something else, I'll let you know later. So just to give you a sense of how mountainous Korea is, you drive out, mountains all over the place, left and right, back, and so on, right? The Seoul is surrounded by mountains, same thing. And did I say hiking is Koreans' favorite pastime? It gets crowded near the peak. You really have to like line up to get to the top. And if you're not careful, you could be pushed off the cliff. I'm not kidding. It gets scary. Okay. And that's a Buddhist temple. So there are many temples in the mountain. Okay, not just one, but many. Okay, and do you have to be a Buddhist to enter like a Buddhist hall? No, it could. So Buddhism for Buddhists is a religion, but Buddhism for practicing Buddhist Koreans is a cultural practice. Okay, so they may just walk in and pray to Buddha gods. Okay, it's a polytheistic religion. And who's there? That's me. I go hiking every weekend. And why do I have these old paintings? To give you a sense how even our ancestors, right? They went hiking. Not that they went hiking for like exercise, but they went up to mountains to like discuss politics and drink soju. Okay. Okay, number 13. Again, it could be a rank, it could be a percentage like the last one, or it could be an actual number. Yes. Like, how do you rank education? Well, I think if I want to just follow up on her point, Korea, when it comes to the tertiary education rate of this particular age group, 25 to 34, Korea is number one in the world. Okay? Because our college enrollment rate is also number one in the world at 76%. Okay? Am I bragging about this? No. It's a tragedy. Because you know how underdeveloped countries suffer from undereducation? Korea suffers from the opposite. We have an over-education situation. Okay? So, anyway, going back to the 13th. Yes? Okay, very good. Maxim coffee for you. Did you say size of the economy, right? So Korea is the 13th largest economy in the world, okay, as measured by GDP. And here is a proof, okay? So 13th right here. Last year, it was actually, Korea's rank was actually 10th, okay? But it has sort of fallen a bit. So the world's largest economy is the US, and it's closely followed by China, and I guess US needs to watch out, right? China is right close behind. And what about Korea is, you know, is in the, it could easily catch up with Russia and Mexico. Well, that's what Korean policymakers are hoping, okay? And I'll talk about Korean economic development as the last lecture topic before the final exam, and I'm sort of jumping ahead, but you know, because Korea has made, you know, did you know that Korea was one of the poorest countries in the world just 50 years ago? If you look at the GDP of 1960, some of the countries that were much wealthier than Korea include Ecuador, Philippines, Congo, Peru, and so on, right? And look at Korea now, right? And because of this, you guys are like, wow, BTS, Blackpink. You know, the economic wealth does come with what is called soft power, okay? Here's another example. When foreign friends visited Korea, like 20 years ago, I would offer them like soju, right? They would take a sip and you go, and you know what their typical reaction was? Oh, shit, oops. They just didn't like the taste, okay? But now, you offer the same soju to foreign friends who visit me. They drink it. They want to like it. Why? Because it's cool to drink something Korean, soju. And that's the answer. Why such a certain change in the way foreigners look at Korean cultural products, it's the economy. You know, economic wealth carries a lot of weight. Okay, and why are people all over the world using English to communicate? Okay, the answer lies in this. Okay, and before that, it was England, which was the world economic power. Okay, anyway, moving ahead, 12. So just by looking at this number, you'll go 12, right? And I'll show it to you right away. And it is this. Korea has the 12th. So if you ever thought that Korea has the highest suicide rate, think again. It's not. Okay? We have the 12th highest suicide rate in the world as of 2019. And here we go. So number one, Lesotho. So the thing about this is that many of these countries you probably never heard of, right? And that's because these are countries that are really small with population like 2 million, 1 million, not even 1 million, right? So the only countries that sort of that many of you would know would be Zimbabwe, South Africa, Mozambique, Russia, and South Korea. So if you go with the qualification like country with, let's say, 20 million population, then Korea will be ranked number 3. Why? After South Africa, Russia, come South Korea. Okay? So anyway, no matter what criteria you use, Korea is not number 1 when it comes to suicide rate. Okay? It's, what's again? 12. Okay? So one thing, since we're at this suicide page, one thing you should know is this. If someone asked you, which gender has a higher suicide rate, male or female, what would have been your answer? Without looking at the data, what would you have thought was the right answer? Oh, males. Well, as you can see here, it's definitely more males. But did you know that more females try committing suicide? When it comes to suicide attempts, females try more. But for the actual committing suicide, males higher. Okay? And that's universal. And why am I showing you this modern sort of slide doors? Yes, it's not for public safety. Okay? We designed this right from the beginning because so many suicide attempts took place at subway stations. Okay? So, because it's, again, number 1 place for trying to commit suicide in Korea. Okay? So, this was necessitated by the fact that if this happened on a daily basis, let's say, okay? The drivers, long post-traumatic experience, they had to be treated for many, many years. Can you imagine someone jumping in front of your train and you actually witnessed that, right? Okay. Even the commuters, when they see that, right? Wow. I mean, I haven't seen, never seen it, but you could imagine how terrible that must be, right? But anyway, that's why the number 1 place today is bridge. Okay? So that's why they put a little thing here so that to prevent people from jumping. Okay? 언제 나가죠? 언제 나갔어? 빠졌어요. Okay. So we have to stop for a few seconds because the communication with Nanjing cut off. So I just finished this up where So this is life satisfaction index. And so you can see how among the OECD countries, Korea has one of the lowest life satisfaction index. And also, there's a thing called World Happiness Report by the UN. And Korea is ranked like in the 57th or so. So what this tells you, okay, is that so what was Korea's rank when it came to economic size again? 13th. And that's because Korea is a wealthy country. And yet, why are so many Koreans committing suicide? Why are so many Koreans unhappy? Okay, that's the thing that puzzles, I'm sure you guys, right? I mean, for some of us, we know what the answer is, right? It's just to name one. Society is just simply too competitive. And there's just too much focus on success, material success, okay? Just to name a couple of things, right? But from this sort of a review of this happiness report and happiness index, I'd like to share with you one thing about happiness, and that is this. You know, we all desire for more money, more prosperity, but studies after studies, that greater wealth does not really make a difference in making you happy. But you got to make sure you know this, and this is the thing. If you don't have enough for your, let's say, living. Let's say you're a student, and you live on your own. So you need let's say in the case of the U.S., $1,000 for rent, $1,000 for spending money, and so on, right? So let's say you need $3,000 a month. Now, if you have that, that's fine. But if you don't have enough to cover your living expenses, it does matter. It makes you unhappy, okay? But if you have enough, let's say that threshold is $30,000 a year. Now, your $30,000 and this guy or this person making $100,000 a year or $1 million a year, studies show very little difference. So as long as you have enough, more you earn does not have an impact on how happy you become. So be happy with what you have. That's the point. Okay? Yes. Oh. They're still working on the connection, so we just need to keep on talking about happiness. Yes. Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I mean, there are many studies on happiness, but as a whole, I think it is safe to say that the more you earn does not really equate with bigger happiness. Yes. Whether it's planned or spontaneously, I haven't seen any report on that because it only applies to those who survived, right? But then what accounts for planned suicide? If someone wrote a will, mm, anyway, it's an interesting question. 컴퓨터를 다시 켜는 거예요? Okay, any other comments? Yes.
How can your point about South Korea being able to be top of the suicide rate ranking? Technically they would still be top of the OECD because the other countries in the list are like better.
Okay, so if we limit our sort of ranking to OECD countries, Korea definitely number one, because South Africa and Russia are not OECD member countries. Any other, very good point. Any other comments? Yes. Oh, very good question. And I'll rephrase that question. Is suicide rate positively or negatively correlated with age? Meaning, is suicide rate higher for younger people? Or as they, when I say is suicide rate positively correlated, means as people age, does the suicide rate also go up? Or is it the opposite? What do you think? It's not just for Korea. There's a universal pattern. Yes? You mean younger people have a higher suicide rate? Well, the answer is the opposite. The suicide rate, so let's say you look at the suicide rate of teenagers, those in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s plus, suicide rate is the highest by far for those in their 80s plus. Next highest is 70s. Next highest is 60s. Next highest 50s. Okay. Okay, students at Nanjing University, welcome back. We're talking about suicide rate in Korea, and just want to mention one thing where universally suicide rate is positively correlated with age, meaning older the people, the higher the suicide rate. And that's universal. And I'm sure it's the same in China too. Okay? All right. Number 5. So when you see numbers like this, you'll think of some kind of ranking, right? And you're correct. So is anything about Korea where Korea is ranked 5th? Well, this is where like China is number 1, and Korea is 5th largest motor vehicle manufacturing country in the world. Okay, 5th largest, more than Germany, believe it or not. Okay. Anyway, I already mentioned this, right? Number 1 manufacturing country as far as motor vehicles is concerned is China by far. Okay, 27 million. Number 2, US, only 10 million. I say only because in comparison to China, right? 3rd is Japan. 4th, India. That is a surprise too, right? 5th, South Korea. Number 6, Germany. Number 7, Mexico. Okay? So the reason why you don't hear about Chinese cars is because so far, most of the motor vehicles manufactured in China are for domestic use. But it is said the Chinese manufacturers are making really good electric vehicles, which could easily outpace the sales of Tesla. Okay? So you could look forward to some Chinese-made cars in the near future. Number 5 continued. Korea boasts 5th longest annual working hours. Not a good thing, is it? Right? Look at this chart. Korea used to be number 1 here, but we're now thankfully number 5. Okay, so Koreans are just working. Look at this. This is, I think, from 2020. I think 2021 or so, right? So Koreans worked on average of 19,000 hours in that year. Okay, and look at where Germany is. Germans only worked just over 1,300 hours. They're lazy, aren't they? I'm just kidding. So, Koreans are infamous for working long hours, but look at this. There's something called labor productivity, okay? So people who come to work, how do they really work productively or not? And they have this way to measure this. Where is Korea? So, which means, I'm half jokingly saying this, right? Koreans show up for work, go out for a coffee break, go out for a cigarette break, even if you don't smoke, go out for a cigarette break again, go out for a coffee break, this time tea break. I'm half jokingly saying that, but I think it does happen in many situations. Number 4. So I'll not sort of wait, because you're not just going to get this, right? And I don't have too many Maxim coffee bags left. Anyway, 4. Korea is 4th in the world in recycling rates. So if you have been living in Korea for some time now, you'll be impressed, right? How intensely we do this, right? And if your country now does this food recycling, we've been doing that for last 20 years. Okay, so we're recycling kings. Almost there. But Germans are outdoing us, including also Singaporeans, and how do you say Welsh? Welsh. All right. Number 2. This is easy. What does number 2 mean for Korea? That should be number 1 then, right? So some obvious ones I left out because I'll be talking about that, right? I'll be talking about the lowest birth rate under aging. I'll be talking about the number 1 college enrollment rate under education. So number 2 is, I was hoping that someone gets this. I'm giving you another chance. 2 means for Korea. Same. Semiconductor, that'll be number 1, because we are the largest producer or manufacturer of semiconductor, which means Samsung is doing that, right? Mostly. Anyway, 2 is two refers to, I'm giving you another chance. 2 Koreas, South Korea and North Korea. And just to give you a sense of, because I find that a lot of young people do not have this map knowledge. So even though you're here, some of you may not really know where Korea is on the map, kind of, right? So its neighbor is China, Russia, okay, North Korea that is. There's Japan, Philippines, and India, and so on, okay? And did you know that the conventional map we use grossly misrepresents the real size of the land? So in your free time, please look up maps that reflect actual size of the land, and they really look different, okay? In that map, Africa in particular appear much larger, okay? And Europe shrinks. Again, real map, okay? And China appears bigger than what you see here, okay? Because did you know that which country boasts the largest land in the world? Russia. Number 2, Canada. Number 3, number 4, USA. So the thing is, number 2, 3, 4, USA, China, Canada, their land is similar in size. But when you look at the map, which country appears to have the largest land of the 3? Canada. And then US, China looks the smallest. You could almost sense as if China's land is about 1/3, 2/3 only. But again, it's very similar. Okay? I mean, almost identical. Okay? Anyway, so here we go. So that's North Korea, South Korea, and this North Korea, South Korea at night. So everything is so dark in North Korea because they just don't have enough electricity. And that's the Panmunjom, DMZ. Oh, this is another place you should go. There is a day trip which is available only for foreigners. Okay? It charges you like only $30, $40, everything included, including soju. That part you have to check. Okay? But I think it does include like a small lunch. Okay? You just got to go, right? Because that side is North Korea. So you get to actually stay here, right? Look across. This is South Korea, North Korea. Okay? And Trump became the first president in office of the USA to actually step into the soil of North Korea. He was there for like 5 seconds. And he said, "Oh, I'm scared." And he just stepped back to South Korea. Okay? Who are Americans here in this room? So what do you think are the chances of Trump winning the election again?
Probably high because Biden, well, they're both incompetent old men. They both suck. But the problem is that, like, you feel like a lot of Democrats don't like Biden, but they still vote for him because he's so old. I don't know. But, like, I think Trump has too many rally bears that he probably will win again, which is depressing. Hopefully he doesn't try to take the Constitution to eliminate the term limits. He would probably never.
Anyway, the world will be watching, right? Anyway, now we turn to the last number 1. Is there anything about Korea that is number 1? Okay. So a student mentioned the lowest birth rate, which is definitely number 1 in the world by far. And that's, no matter which countries you include, number 1. What else? It could be something negative. Well, this was negative, right? Just to give you a sense of how terrible this is, I'll tell you this much. Again, Korea's fertility rate last year was 0.72. Now, why is that bad? You gotta see that in the context of what I have to say now. There is a thing called replacement level fertility, which means if Korea's population was what again? 51 million, right? So if Korea wants to maintain that level of population, 51 million, replacement level fertility is 2.1. But we have been having lower than 2 fertility rate for some time now, right? That is why, so our fertility rate is only 1/3 of what is necessary to maintain this 51 million population. That's why Korean population has been declining since 2020. And the number of the decrease is increasing. And there's no turning back. Okay? So there's a talk of Korean population falling to like 37 million by 2067. That's just, 40 years from now, right? Korean population falling by 1/3 in 40 years. So you think it makes sense to buy property in Korea? Property, real estate. Don't do that, okay? Anyway, number one. So fertility rate, anything else? Number one, that is Korean? Well, that's related to low fertility rate, right? So Korea is, yes, the fastest, most rapidly aging society in the world. Okay, so among the OECD countries, Korea has the but Korea has the highest poverty rate of elderlies among the OECD countries. Okay. And did I see a hand over there? Anyone? Yes. Of? Who have highest mortality rate? Korea has one of the lowest mortality rates of all age groups, right? Anyway, these are the two number ones I have. Okay, first is so Korea has the world's highest percentage of households with internet access. Did you know this? So 99.5% of households in Korea have internet access. Now, just for comparison, let's look at the USA. USA is here at less than 80%. How do you explain this? American student? Yeah?
I mean, it's because a lot of rural areas have less infrastructure and companies don't want to expand there.
And the residents there do not have the need, right? Mm.
They do, but they can't afford it because they'll charge so much people to invest money in rural areas.
Okay, thank you. Good point. Okay, last one. Korea has the highest smartphone penetration rate in the world. So we have 94% of adults in Korea with smartphones. Okay. And any country you're interested in learning about? US, 77. Just kidding. Anyway, I'm sure just by, riding on the subway, that 94% makes sense, right? Because everyone is looking at their cell phone, right? Yes. Okay, oh, that's true. So, well, let's take comfort in knowing that it's sort of 8-year outdated data, right? So maybe India now is close to 50% maybe? I don't know. But I'm sure it's better than the number you see there. Okay. All right. Now I'm done with the Korea numbers, and the next section is something like a major shift. All right. Now we had our ice-breaking time, and now we turn to more serious stuff. Okay. Something that you really need to know if you want to understand culture. Okay. So the title of this particular section is this: What is culture? 5 keywords to understand its characteristics. Okay, and you're in for a shock this afternoon. Okay, and here's why. Anyway, but I want to start with a quote by Ruth Benedict, one of the better-known anthropologists or experts of cultural studies. The crucial differences which distinguish human societies and human beings are not biological, they're cultural. Okay? Homo sapiens. Am I going back too far in time? Okay. Homo sapiens originated in Africa, where it reached anatomical modernity about 200,000 years ago, meaning Homo sapiens 200,000 years ago had the same anatomy as us today. Okay? Just same. Okay? And Homo sapiens in Africa reached full behavioral modernity around 50,000 years ago, meaning they were pretty much behaving like us. Okay, they had the aptitude. Okay, and as mental capacity expanded, we became the only species that names itself, and we are appropriately termed Homo sapiens, Latin for thinking person or wise person. This whole slide is just maybe too grandeur, but here's the reason why. Okay, the long evolutionary process made us what we are: almost hairless, bipedal, family forming, self-aware, and most importantly, tool using. Language using. Okay? And here's more. A high intelligence of Homo sapiens led to, among others, the development of human speech 100,000 years ago, the invention of writing as early as some 5,500 years ago, the spread of printing presses 500 years ago, and the use of the internet since the early to mid 1980s. Okay? Why am I saying all this? High intelligence of Homo sapiens also led to the making and use of a wide variety of tools which allowed us to overpower much bigger, stronger, or faster animal species. Homo sapiens has spread to every continent, becoming perhaps the most widely dispersed species on the planet, and human population is still growing. What is the human population as of like today, roughly? Over 8 billion. Okay? Do you know what the human population was 10,000 years ago, roughly? It was only about 5 million. So in 10,000 years, human population just exploded. Can you think of any other species that exploded like Homo sapiens? No other species comes even close. We're by far the most successful species. Okay? The question is, what accounts for the unprecedented success of our species? Yes. So what made that possible? I mean, you're right, but you're not right getting the quite, yes. That is also a factor, but the answer that I'm looking for is this: culture. Again, going back to this tool using, how could we overpower sharks? How could we catch alligators, lions, elephants? Because we use tools, and that's culture. Okay? And you talked about forming a group. It's possible because we use language. We have the ability to empathize. We know how to cooperate when there's a need. Okay? So anyway, all of these fall under the big category called culture. Okay? So, to continue on, humans are the only species on the planet which relies solely on culture for survival. See, sole reliance on culture for survival is perhaps the greatest breakthrough in evolutionary history. Human beings developed the mental power to adapt to the natural environment, made and remade their worlds in countless ways, hence the existence of fascinating cultural diversity. Okay, I'm sure some of you guys are like, maybe not fully in agreement with the points that are being made, but I'll come back to your curiosity later. And here we go. For humans, culture has been a substitute for instinct as a means of responding to the environment. Again, I'll have time for discussion later. Over a long period of time, the biological forces we call instincts were replaced by a more efficient survival scheme, that is culture. So we rely on culture precisely because we are no longer born with genetically determined information to know how to survive, like how to take care of ourselves, how to protect ourselves. Now, do we know what to eat? What is safe to eat without learning? See, we have to learn everything, and that is culture. Okay? You have to learn what to eat, when to eat, what to dress, what to believe in, how to protect ourselves, what to do when you face certain situations. All of these are learned after you're born. There's nothing genetically determined, which is instinct. Okay? So, here we go. Every other form of life, from ants to giraffes in the wild, on the other hand, behaves in uniform and common species-specific ways, guided by instincts. Okay? So, let me ask you. So there's this question of culture versus instinct, which is, the one question is, do humans have instincts? Which one is more advantageous? Instinct or culture? Well, success of Homo sapiens proves that culture is more advantageous, right? Because it could change. It could adapt. Okay? Now, back to this question. Do humans have instincts? I'm sure many of you believe that humans have instincts, right? So, what I have to tell you is one opinion. Okay? You don't have to agree with this. Okay? But if you have believed that humans have instincts, think again. Again, just think again. Okay? Not that you should change your views, but think again. Okay? So here we go. Definition of instinct is this. An instinct is an unlearned, biologically determined and genetically programmed behavior pattern over which animals have no control. Can dogs on their own go on a diet? Can they abstain from mating when female dogs are in heat? Dogs that are trained, maybe trained by humans, okay? That's not natural intervention, okay? May abstain from eating food because they've been trained. Because unless they do that, they're beaten usually, right? So that's instinct, okay? So to continue, the argument that humans do not have instincts say that we instead have reflexes and drives. What is the difference between instinct and drive? Drive can be controlled. Hunger drive, food drive, sex drive, all of these can be controlled. Yes or no? Yes. There's nothing in us that we cannot control. Okay? So, and what about reflexes? Reflex is an unlearned, biologically determined, involuntary response to some physical stimuli. Example, sneezing or the blinking of an eye. And here's a list. Can you read this? On the left, there's reflex. Okay? Involuntary. Okay? But most of them disappear. Like palm grasping. Did you know that babies, if they are thrown into water right after birth, they could swim? But the ability to swim disappears in 6 months or so. Okay? This is not from personal observation. That's what is said. Okay? So there's a stepping, there's a sucking. I definitely have tried this on my own children. Put my finger there, they suck until they're like a few months old, right? But it disappears. I mean, if you still sucked on fingers, that would be weird, right? So that's reflex. Reflex is simple, okay? We're born with that, okay? Again, not instinct, okay? Drives are unlearned, biologically determined impulses because we do have this desire, right, for food, desire to sleep, we desire for sexual gratification too. But they're not instincts because they could be controlled. Okay, so here we go. Unlike instincts, we can suppress these desires. The way we actually satisfy these drives is learned through cultural experience. We learn. There's so many rules, right, regarding how to, satiate our desire for food and also sexual gratification. There's so many rules, taboos, and so on, right? So, and other examples are these. We can suppress our drives. Suicide. Do you know any other species that commit suicide? At least on a regular basis. What example did you want to give? And also, black widow, right? If you could call that suicide. After mating, these male spiders give themselves up to be eaten by females so that their genes can be passed on. So that's not really considered a suicide, but a way to maximize the chance of passing on the genes to the next generation, right? But I'm talking about suicide like volitionally, like humans do, right? So with spiders and maybe the birds example, they instinctively do that, okay? Not by choice, okay? And did you want to say? Well, killer whale. Okay, well, I don't want to talk about an isolated incident. Okay? Whereas humans, it's a common pattern that you find in every culture. Okay? So, why is that possible? If it was instinct, not possible. Okay? Because instinct is survival instinct, right? Yes. Oh, of course. But the point is, if you want, you could suppress your desire to sleep. I know, but just because you could suppress your desire to sleep does not mean you could go for like a month. Okay? The point is that we could do that whenever we want to. Okay? Like diet. Is there anybody in this room who has never been on a diet? Wow. Amazing. Total respect. It's so easy to be on a diet, right? That's why I've been on it like hundreds of times, on and off. But anyway, to give you a full list, some people risk their lives to save others. Okay? Protesters can go on hunger strikes. People intentionally starve for dieting, and sex drive is often suppressed. Okay? So again, with these, I'm not saying all these to change the way you think, but at least have a new perspective on what culture is. Okay? And especially how that correlates or contrasts with instinct. Okay? So, any other questions? So again, this is not about like arguing whether humans have instincts or not. Okay? At least from my point of view, I'm one for thinking that we don't have instincts, but I don't want to impose my views on you, but at least, have some thoughts as to whether, again, rethink about this issue. I'm sure you haven't really thought about this for a long time, right? So, I think let's leave it at that for now, okay? So culture is thus important because it is the foundation of everything that we are. It makes us who we are and what we are. We cannot imagine our lives without culture. We eat culture, we wear culture, we think culture, we see culture, we act culture, we touch culture. I don't know if this sentence makes sense. I made it up, but we hear culture, we breathe, and that's profound, right? We breathe culture. Okay? Given the importance of culture for human survival, what would children be like if somehow they were raised without the influence of culture? Can this kind of a experiment take place, you think? Deprive children of cultural influences? Of course, it can never take place intentionally, but there are some boys who were found in nature who were denied of any cultural influence. Okay? So here are a couple of examples. Children who grew without culture. Okay? One example, so again, no humane person could actually try to bring up a child away from cultural influence as an experiment. But again, there have been a number of much discussed cases of children who spent their early years away from normal human contact. Two examples. I want to talk about today. Victor of Aveyron in France and Dina Sanichar in India. Okay? The first example, Victor of Aveyron. That's his portrait. So I'm just going to read it from the screen. The mysterious story of Victor began in 1800 when a boy around 12 years old was found wandering in the woods near Aveyron in southern France. The wild child was naked and spoke only in shrill, strange-sounding cries, no language of any kind. An abundance of scars seemed to indicate that he had been exposed to the elements since a very young age. In spite of walking erect, he looked more animal than human. The boy apparently had no sense of hygiene and relieved himself wherever and whenever he chose. He refused to be washed or touched, ignored human contact, and often exploded in violent outbursts. He was brought to the attention of the local police and taken to a nearby orphanage. At first, he constantly tried to escape, being recaptured only with some difficulty. He refused to wear clothes, tearing them off as soon as they were put on him. So, as you read and as you hear what I have to say, as I read this, you can imagine how you are so different from this guy, right? And that's because you were influenced by culture and how you were socialized into this whole cultural system, okay? The child was subjected to a thorough medical examination, which turned up no abnormalities of a major kind. So he was not mentally retarded or any kind of anything like that. Later, the boy was moved to Paris, and a systematic attempt was made to change him from beast to human. The endeavor was only partly successful. He was toilet trained, accepted wearing clothes, and learned to dress himself. Yet he was uninterested in toys or games and was never able to master more than a few words, never uttering a complete sentence, although a linguist worked with him for several years. I'm not going to read the rest, but the interpretation from this one case is this. You know, we take language speaking for granted, right? But studies show that there are certain years in childhood that you have to learn the first language. If you miss it, you're not going to be able to catch up. Like this example, okay? Again, you can try to mutter a few words, but having a full ability to speak a language, it can only happen in young age, okay? Like before the age of, let's say, 5 or 6, okay? The second example, Dina Sanichar. Often known as the Wolf Boy, he was first discovered in 1867 after a band of hunters saw what they initially thought was a wild animal sleeping in the mouth of a cave in Bulandshahr in northern India. When the man finally smoked the creature out of its hiding place, they were astonished to find it was actually a boy of around 6 years old. The child appeared to have been living in the wilderness for most of his life and had allegedly survived by scampering on all fours with a pack of wolves. That's why Wolf Boy. The hunters brought the boy to an orphanage in Agra, where he was taken in and named Dina Sanichar. Missionaries spent the next several years trying to rehabilitate the wolf boy, but years in the wild had taken their toll. He never learned to talk, just like the first example, he never learned to talk. Okay? And he preferred to chew on bones and dine on raw animal meat rather than cooked food. Okay? So, reflection. Of course, we have to be cautious about interpreting cases of this sort, right? It is possible that a mental abnormality had remained undiagnosed, but yet there is sufficient similarity between these case histories and others that have been recorded to suggest how limited our faculties would be in the absence of an extended period of early socialization and exposure to culture. That is, we learn how to behave and interact, what to do, what to eat, how to eat, what to wear, what and how to say, what to believe, all through culture. So again, spent a lot of time talking about instinct versus culture, and this case studies all to remind you how important culture is in our lives. Okay? And again, I hope you could rethink, reappreciate what culture is to you. Okay? So I hope I have done that. Okay? And we now turn to sort of a next part or section. What is culture? I'll give you a simple definition. Okay? Culture refers to the distinct ways that people living in different parts of the world adapted creatively to the environment. Okay? Culture can also be defined as all the behaviors, ways of life, arts, beliefs, and institutions of a population that are passed down from generation to generation. Culture has been called the way of life for an entire society. Okay? So that's culture. And my question is this. Culture consists of various components as the next slide shows. Before I show you the next slide, what constitutes culture? What are the components of culture or elements of culture? Name 20. Yes. Language. Norms. Symbols. Religion. We have 4 now. Food. 5. Values. Very good. Oh my God, I forgot to make Maxim coffee for you. Next week. Okay. Did you want to say? Ritual. It can also include tradition. Yes. Clothes. Wow, you're very good. We have like up to 10. Yes. Music. BTS. Blackpink. NTC. 8 p.m., 10 p.m. Super Junior, Super Senior. Yes. Housing. Last call. One more. Education. Yes. They all constitute culture. Okay? And so let's see the list that I have here. And this is not an exhaustive list. Okay? Now, students at the back, can you see the slide, the words? Wow, you guys have good vision. Amazing. All right. So you can see the list, right? Take a good look, because I have a $1 million question next. Actually, Maxim coffee question. Okay? 2 more questions regarding culture. We already mentioned this, right? Next question is, how many cultures are there in the world? Since we talked about culture, very important question, right? So how do you distinguish cultures? How do you distinguish different cultures? Anyone? Yes. No. Within a country, there may be more than one culture, right? So how do you distinguish different cultures? Okay, one is ethnicity. The other one is? If you think of something, say it. Very good. Two criteria are used to distinguish different cultures: ethnicity and language. And using those criteria, how many cultures are there in the world? And if anyone is from a multi-ethnic society, traditionally that is, you could name like, my country is this, and we have, like 10 ethnic groups or whatever, traditionally. Okay? Anyone? Yeah? No. Ethnic groups. How many ethnic groups in China? Yes. So in China alone, we have 56 different cultures. Okay? And anyone else? Okay, well, anyway, very easy to remember. According to the UN, there are 10,000 different cultures in the world. Isn't this amazing? Again, easy to remember number, right? 10,000. And so I think this number makes what we're doing a humbling experience, right? Because we're just talking about one culture out of 10,000 and so on, right? So, having done that, the question is, so you remember the list of cultural elements? Where do you start? What are the starting points for exploring the most important aspects of a given culture? In other words, out of the vast array of elements that constitute culture, what are the most important ones in understanding a new culture? And name 5 most important ones out of all the elements that we talked about. Okay, very good. Religion. So let's call it faith. 1. Anyone else? 5 most important ones. Language. 2. Yes. Values. Wow, you guys are good. First 3 answers, just correct. So we have 3 now. Faith/religion, values, language. 2 more. Wow. 4th correct answer, straight. First time ever happening. So we have language, values, norms. Language, norms, values. Oh, faith. Okay. Last one. Yes. That'll be part of faith. Okay. Good try. Anyone else? History is not part of culture, to be, strictly speaking. Okay? Last one is giving you the hardest time. Come on. So what are the 4 again we have so far? Language, values, faith, norms. You know, I want you to do this. Before you fall asleep tonight, make sure you remember the 5 key elements. Okay? See, if we don't identify the 5th one, you will not be able to sleep tonight. Okay? Yes? You got to be more specific. Yes. Tradition, not. Yes. Institution? Not included in the 5. So see, I didn't arbitrarily come up with this 5. These 5 have been identified by cultural studies experts. Okay? Yes? Yeah. No. Environment? That's not culture, right? Yes. Geographical conditions? No. Wow. I'm going to wait till somebody gets it right. Do you remember the list? Should I go back? Yes. Oh. He's got it. It's symbols. Okay? So, name those 5. Anyone? Without looking. What are the 5 key elements of culture that are essential for understanding a new culture? Hands up. And be blessed. Find your freedom. Find light. No one is taking the bait. No one can memorize these 5? Come on, someone. See, you always get stuck on the 4th one, right? Anyone? One more time. Yes. Very good. So make sure you try this, okay, before you fall asleep. And I hope you don't, not lose what, sleep? No. I hope you don't. I hope you have a nice sleep, but try to remember the 5. Anyway, of the 5, I think some of you may think, why should symbol be included? I mean, you sort of agree with the rest 4, right? Language, norms, values, faith, right? But symbols, but it goes like this. What is the most important cultural symbol of the West? Now, when I say West, it includes countries like Germany, England, USA, all went to war, duking it out, killing millions of people, and yet they share this one symbol. Okay? Yes. Symbol, not value. Yes. Very good. The cross. And let's say you're an alien, or you don't know anything about the culture of the USA, but you learn that the cross is the most important cultural symbol of the USA, and what do you learn? That many Americans are Christians, that they hold Christian values, that they follow Christian norms, there's Christian architecture, there are Christian laws, and so on, right? So you get to learn much by knowing what the important cultural symbols are of a given country. Okay? So, having said that, I want to show you, so just to give you one more reminder as to why these 5, like identifying these 5 cultural elements are important, is this. If you're interested in learning about a new culture, and right now, whether you like it or not, you have to sort of learn about Korean culture. The question is, again, where do you start? So, to the question of what is most important to understand, a lot of people would say things like food. You see, I think food is interesting. Like whenever I visit a new country, yes, it is interesting, but do I learn anything about their culture? For example, if you know that Koreans eat kimchi on a daily basis, and they eat rice every day, and they are racist, what do you learn about Koreans? Do you learn anything like their psyche, their worldview, from knowing what they eat? What about what they wear? Do you get to learn anything about, so let's say Americans, they wear cowboy hats and jeans. What do you learn? Again, you may learn something about their culture, but it's not as important as their faith, not as important as their norms, language, and so on. Do you agree with what I have to say? Okay? So again, so with these 5 elements, you learn to distinguish from what is important from what is interesting. Okay? Nobody really got this. Like I said, Koreans, and including myself, eat rice for breakfast, eat rice for lunch, eat rice for dinner, and I consider myself racist. Nobody's laughing at this great joke. You know why it is great? Because I invented this term, racist. So if you ever have to use this term, quote my name, racist. Koreans are racist. Japanese are racist. Chinese racist too? I think so. Okay. Okay. A few more slides before I let you go. So different wording. Belief, okay, not faith. But it's the same thing, but I think it's better to go with beliefs. Okay? So for the next 2 classes after today, I'll be talking about Korean symbols, Korean language, Korean beliefs, Korean norms, and Korean values. Most important. Did you ever think about why values are important? For example, ask yourself, why did your parents marry each other? It's values. Okay? If you're dating someone right now, why? The answer lies in values. For example, I married my wife because she's rich. I'm just kidding. I married my wife because she's really nice. She's very considerate. I mean, I found that out right from our first date. Okay? And I also found, I found her attractive. Okay? So that's another thing. And for example, but many like older age Koreans, if you look at why they got married, it was all conditional. Like this man's education from Seoul National University, has a really nice job at a major corporation. You see how? That's all values. Okay? And if somebody marries for money, that's also value. If someone marries someone for beauty, that's value. Okay? And so marriage is something very important, right? But even for small things, do you ever make any decision without value, you think? For example, you don't feel like going out, but your friend calls you and say, hey, let's go out to drink or for coffee. I'm sure many of you went along anyway. Why? Value of friendship. So I would say there's nothing that you do without value. So we are animals of value, but we just don't think about it. Like when lying in bed before falling asleep, do you ever thank your hands? Do you ever thank your legs? We don't. We take these for granted, like values. Maybe it's a stupid example, but you know what I'm saying, right? I'm now spitting. Okay, so culture, I call these pillars of culture. Okay? It really makes what makes culture work, I would say. And has anyone ever seen this? It's called cultural iceberg. I think it's so beautiful figure, okay? Because it just captures the essence of what culture is, okay? See, iceberg looks exactly like this. What you see on the surface, counts for only about 10% of the whole mass. Okay? And that's what culture is like. What you see on the surface, like the age of the person, gender of the person, the language they speak, that's only like 10%. It's surface culture. The rest is underneath. Less visible, not visible, and it's called deep culture. Okay? Not deep fake, but it's deep culture. It has nothing to do with AI or whatever, right? So if you ever want to use this word deep, this is the right, really profound one, right? Deep culture, what we don't see, difficult to see, invisible, internal. You sort of have to learn, right, to make the right interpretation, okay? And the iceberg concept of culture, it's the same thing, right? All right. Now, the next part begins the whole new adventure, and I don't really want to begin because, again, next 2 weeks I'll be talking about Korean symbols, Korean language, Korean beliefs, Korean norms, and Korean values. And do you have any questions or comments up to what we have talked about today? Yes.
Can I counter your point about like food not being the most like representative of culture? Because I actually think this is interesting. Because typically when you go to a restaurant in the U.S., this is like an American style restaurant, everybody orders for themselves like what they want. Whereas in Korea, typically you go to a restaurant, you're ordering for the table and you share amongst others. And I think that actually does show a cultural value in a sense. Yeah, I get it. I get it's not. It's maybe not as important as other ones. It's not directly about the food, but I do think it's actually a cultural value.
Okay, thank you. A student mentioned how food should also be considered as a important element of culture, especially in trying to understand a new culture. A point well taken, but I guess when we consider food as an element, it's more about food itself, not like how it is cooked or how it is eaten or how it is shared, but food itself, like in the case of Korea, kimchi, rice, and so on, right? So, and in my own defense, I like to say, I didn't come up with a list of 5 elements, okay? It's a list, sort of ideas that have been generated by scholars of cultural studies. And for me, it made sense, okay? But again, whenever I propose something, don't take it as the truth, okay? It's an idea that I want to share with you, and it's a starting point, okay? From that point on, you think about your own, okay? And you decide for yourself what makes most sense to you, okay? Just like the instinct versus culture, it's an idea that you may not have thought about for a long time. I've reminded you what the issues are, and so think about this issue, okay? And so you're just dying to get out of this classroom, but learning takes place not just in the classroom, but outside, okay? So if anything I mentioned today tickled your curiosity, you don't close your book, meaning you look it up. And you live in an age where looking up ideas and information is made so easy. You know, when I was your age, if I wanted to learn something, you know what I had to do? I had to go to the library to look up a damn word or concept. But you just type it and it's all there. And the gift of Wikipedia, right? It has such a nice summary-like entry of almost every important concept, right? So, and today maybe you didn't find anything to look up, but every so often I will remind you. I'll mention something and I'll say, look it up after class, okay? Because I cannot really do full justice to certain concepts that I discuss, okay? So again, you got to do that to become a good student. And I emphasize good student because, do you think I'm a good student or not? I'm not using a past tense here, okay? I am a good student because I am learning. Always, constantly, okay? And you should do the same. All right? Okay. So thank you, everyone. So students at Nanjing University, see you next week, okay?